Hello everybody, my name is Chris Wallington, and on behalf of the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you to an evening with Mark Twain. Tonight, Mark Twain's special guest will be Nik Hagler. For those of you that know him, you won't be able to visit with him until after the show, but we hope you enjoy this presentation put on for you by the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce Fine Arts Committee. Why am I up here? Well, okay, good question. Buster Bounds and the committee thought it would be a nice gesture on their part and for us if the Center High School Theater Department was the sponsor of this show. And I really appreciate the opportunity, Buster. What that means is we did a very little bit of legwork to make this show possible. And in exchange, we get the chance to really benefit from the work of a professional actor that also happens to be a center rough rider. So we really appreciate that. My students are helping with some of the technical aspects of the show. Cody Andrews is on sound, Shelley Sullivan on lights, Lilia McFarland on video, and we have several of my students that greeted you on the way in: Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, Aunt Polly, and Becky. And I teach them as well in a weird twist of time travel. Those folks are played by Janet Covington, Colby Miller, Lindsay Christian, Kelly Rolls, and Patrick Dempsey. I thought they did a very nice job. If you are a member of the Theater Arts Department, if you would at this time please stand and be recognized. Thank you. Far more importantly than that, though, is the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce Fine Arts Committee. They have done such a good job over the past few years of bringing quality entertainment to Shelby County. You don't even have to travel further than Rio to see professional, high-quality entertainment right here in Shelby County. I think that's very important. If you are a member of that committee, would you please stand and be recognized? We have a new member of the committee as well, Andy Foster. Are you here? Andy, we're going to Andy now via satellite. Andy, she isn't here, but she is a new member, and if you would please give her applause loud enough to be heard at her home. One of the things that we will be responsible for later on in the show at intermission, there will be refreshments supplied for you. There is punch, there is coffee, and there are tea cakes. And to tell you a little bit about the punch, coffee, and tea cakes are two of the people that are responsible for bringing them to you, Becky and Aunt Polly. Girls, if you would please welcome them to the platform. Becky, as loudly as possible, tell them about your tea cakes.
Oh goodness, I'm kind of nervous, but thank you. Aunt Polly taught me how to make tea cakes about a week ago, and I thought it'd be nice, especially to bring them all to you here tonight. Gosh, and I really think that you don't like them. But anyway, they'll be there at intermission and that, so if you get hungry during the show, I'd appreciate it if you go on back there and we'll get you some. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to tell you all a little bit about my Sunday punch. Well, I make Sunday punch, and they call it Aunt Polly's Sunday punch. This is a recipe that's been passed down for generations, but I just got the name. Well, I'd like to give y'all some at intermission if I can find it. I think Tom and Huckleberry stole it and hid it somewhere. So I'll try to find it and give you some at intermission. I hope you enjoy it.
There you go. And there is also coffee, and of course the Rio has popcorn and traditional movie treats available for you. Many of you took advantage of that on your way in. You're welcome to do that at intermission as well. Before we go too far, Executive Director Pam Phelps, who also should be recognized, raise your hand, Pam, of the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce. She noticed that there is a black Land Rover with its lights on close to the chamber office. If that's yours, and if you know that the lights are not going to automatically go off and trip Pam in the next 4 or 5 minutes, you might take care of that. A black Land Rover parked here at the Chamber of Commerce office. It's good to be here at the show, but it's also nice to be able to go home. Well, finally, please turn off your cell phones, your pagers, and your other electronic devices. They didn't exist in the late 1800s, so we wouldn't want them to interfere today. At this time, it is my pleasure on behalf of the theater department and the Shelby County Chamber of Commerce to tell you, oh, thank you very much. You thought the show was going to start. Buster's giving me a hand signal. When we have intermission, the way that we do our food is going to be set up here on the actual stage, but we need some traffic flow, so here's what we're going to do. This row, you guys, if you're coming down here, you get your food first. You just kind of come this way, get your food, and then go back and browse. If you're on this side of the auditorium, to get here, you have to turn around and go that way. So it'll just kind of be like a carousel. If you're in the balcony, sorry. If you're in the balcony, by the time you get down here, it should be obvious what's going on. And we're glad, of course, that you're here. So now, I think all of the preliminaries are taken care of. It's my pleasure again to introduce to you the funniest man in America. Please welcome Mark Twain.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to present to you a man whose great learning and veneration for the truth are exceeded only by his high moral character and majestic presence. I refer in these vague, uncertain terms to myself. I consider introductions unnecessary, but if it is a custom to having them, I prefer to do them myself. That way I'm assured of getting facts straight. I was born modest. And wore off. My name is Samuel Langhorne Clemens, Mark Twain. I do like compliments, we all do. You know, humorist, congressmen, burglars, all of us in the trade. I like the plan of the newspapers, don't you see? If you can't get a compliment any other way, pay yourself one. Well, I can do it. It's easy. I can do it right now. I can tell you that at this moment there are two men who are most remarkable. Kipling is one, and I'm the other. Between us, we cover all knowledge. Kipling knows everything that can be known, and I know the rest. You know, I am always a little bit sorry to have my name mentioned with the great writers of all time. They have such an ugly habit. Chaucer's dead. Spencer's dead. Milton and Shakespeare, they're dead too. I ain't feeling so well myself. You know, high literature is fine. It's like wine. Mine is like water. But everybody drinks water. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll understand these spectacles. I was first introduced to the use of spectacles on May 10th, 1888. That was the same day I got a little playful and tried to learn to ride a bicycle. Spectacles stayed on. I hope you don't mind if I smoke. I understand that there is some laws about insurrections of this sort, this dignified in nature, but I'm working very hard to have that repealed. Mind you, I have no objection to abstinence as long as you do it in moderation. I practice abstinence myself on occasion. I make it a rule never to smoke more than one cigar at a time. Never when I'm asleep. No, I don't care for moderation for myself, you understand. I do it as an example to others. Prove that I'm not a slave to the habit. I can give it up anytime I want to. I've done it 1,000 times. And see now, first time was when I was a boy, about 7 or 8. And somebody told me that smoking can take 10 years off your life. Well, I got scared and I gave it up for 3 or 4 hours. I decided that the decade wouldn't be worth a dead gum without smoking in it, so that was the end of that. I mentioned that I had a high veneration for the truth. I do. All my literary life, I can never tell a lie that anyone would doubt, or a truth that anyone would believe. The truth is mighty and shall prevail. That is a very nice sentiment. The only thing wrong with it is it ain't true. Man is never more truthful than when he acknowledges himself as a liar. And the surest way to convey misinformation is to tell the truth. For instance, when I was a young man studying for the gallows, I went on the overland stage to the Nevada Territory. It was quite a trip. On the 19th day, we came to Nevada, halted at Ragtown on the western edge of the great American desert. That was a sight for you. Nothing there, but there was alive at least. For 50 miles around, except a couple of Indians and a few grasshoppers. 4 or 5 buzzards, they were out of meat, too frail to get away. But we crossed the Carson River. Now that Carson River is very much like, in all respects, the Erie Canal, except that the Erie is 4 times as long and twice as deep. It was a moist ditch. Any stray cat can come along and lap it up. With my river, I wouldn't leave it out at night like that. Eventually, located in Virginia City, it was a good place to lose your religion if you had any left by the time you got there. It was the liveliest town, Virginia City was, for its age and size that America ever produced. It had brass bands and fire companies and banks and wide open gambling places and civic processions and street fights and murders and riots and a whiskey mill of 15 steps. Half a dozen jails. some talk of building a church. And there's no place for a Presbyterian. I didn't stay one for very long. It was just too much. Every now and then, the boys in Virginia said he used to tell me I ought to get old Jim Blaine to tell me about his grandfather's bully old ram, that I wouldn't regret it. Well, I got to pestering Blaine. But the boy said, no. You gotta wait till he's drunk. Just sociably, peaceably drunk. So I followed Blaine around for days, and I'd find him drunk. But the boys always found some fault with it. He's getting drunk, all right, but he's not right yet. Well, one day they said, he's ready. He's peaceably, sociably drunk. So I run down there and I found old Blaine sitting on a stump, looking like he's about to go to sleep. Whiskey bottle sitting next to him. Shh, he's about to commence. There never was a muddier old ram than that ram my grandfather got him up in Tulare County. Brought him down, turned him loose in the pasture. Yeah, turned him loose in the pasture. Next day, grandfather got up and went down there to look at his goat. He dropped a 10-cent piece in the grass. Well, Smith was there. Smith of Tulare County was watching him. And grandfather, wasn't Smith of Tulare at all? No, sure, it wasn't in Smith. Smith of Calvaris. Smith of Tulare was nobody. Smith of Calvaris, he was a-watching. And grandfathers had bent over in the grass, looking for that 10-cent piece. And that old ram was up the hill. He seen grandfather bent over like that, and he took it as an invitation. And he commenced down that hill about 30 miles an hour. Meanness in his heart. And it wasn't Smith the Calvert. Is Smith of Sacramento? Sure it was. Well, Smith Sacramento, I guess that'll tell you something. Ain't no better blood south of the line than that Smith of Calvaris. Smith of Sacramento. No. Well, one of them married a Whitaker. What do you say to that? Huh? Marry a Whitaker. Finest little girl you ever saw. One of them fine, southern-blooded young ladies. Had a heart big as all outdoors. Mary couldn't have a thing and somebody needed not welcome to it. I mean, if she had a thing and you wanted it, here it was, welcome to it. Mary had a glass eye. She used to loan it out to Flora Ann Baxter. Now, Flora Ann didn't have one. So. Oh, the beautiful eye. It was blue on one side you look out of, and gilt on the other side. There's only one trouble, see. There was excavated for a 6. And Flora Ann was fitted for a 10. Flora Ann used to put cotton behind it to keep it in place. That worked all right till Flora Ann would get excited. That cotton would pop out, and that eye would commence to turn and flash. First blue, and then gilt and blue and gilt and blue. So fast that not the soberest man in the room could keep up with expression on that side of the face. On a Flora Ann, Flora Ann, she was something else. She married a hogadorn. Flora Ann married a hogadorn. Now, that'll tell you something. There wasn't better blood on the old Maryland eastern shore than in the hogadorn. Huh? One of them married a missionary. And they went off out yonder in the ocean summers to one of them islands to take the word to the unwashed. Well, the cannibals ate him. Ate him too. That was unusual because the custom was only to eat the family, not the missionary. And the cannibals realized their fault. Said they were sorry. Said they wouldn't do it again. But said it was an accident. Accident? There ain't no such thing as an accident. There ain't nothing in the world happens except it is provided for by divine nature. When you look at my Uncle Lem, what do you say that? Uncle Lem, yeah, talk to me about accidents. One day, Uncle Lem and his dog were downtown, and they come to some scaffolding, and Uncle Lem was leaning up against the scaffolding, sleepy or drunk or something. And an Irishman, about 3 stories in, he's carrying a hod of bricks. His foot slipped. Down come that Irishman, bricks and all. He hit a stranger, knocked the ever-living aspirations right at him. Man was ready for the undertaker in under 2 minutes. People said, well, see, that's divine providence. Why did the Irishman, have to hit the stranger? He could have hit the dog. Well, for a very good reason. You can't hit a dog with no Irishman. The dog would have seen him coming in a move. Okay. What is that dog's name? Jasper. Jasper, that was his name. Finest dog he ever saw. Come from some fine southern dogs. Yeah. Got him off the wheelers, I believe. Yeah. And Wheeler was another case of that. Wheeler, one day, he worked in a carpet factory, don't you see? And one day he was leaning up against the machinery, sleepy or drunk or something. And that machinery made a grab first. Snatched him up faster than you could say anything, and he went a-whizzing around in that machinery, and before you knew it, he'd have got himself wove up into 39 yards of the finest 3-ply carpet in that. His widow was sorry, uncommonly sorry. Well, she did the only thing she could do. She bought the whole piece. She wanted to bury him proper, but she couldn't. She couldn't stand to lay him out like that. So she stood him up. Put a monument there. Said, "Here lies Millington G. Wheeler, 39 yards of the finest 3-ply carpet. Go down and do likewise." About that time, old Jim's voice sort of trailed off. He was gone. He was out. Never did find out what happened to his grandfather, bully old Ram, or his grandfather, or the 10-cent piece. We don't have anything, know what happened, or if anything. It all happened in those Western days of mine. I used to go over to San Francisco on holiday. One of those trips I arrived with a very bad cold. The lady at the hotel told me to drink a quart of whiskey every 24 hours. Another man I met told me exactly the same thing. That was half a gallon. I did. Cold died. I lived. I've had hangovers before, but that one was a masterpiece. I dreamed I was baptized. You know, wine, or any strong drink, for that matter, are bad things, children. Bad things. It makes you quarrel with your neighbor, make you shoot at your landlord, make you miss your landlord. Eventually, in those Western days, I landed a berth on the Sacramento Union as their special correspondent to the Sandwich Islands. Our first stop was Honolulu. Beautiful, beautiful, dreamy, enchanted place. I wanted to explore. I was told that the best way to do that was on a horse. Well, I'd had some experience with a Mexican club back in Carson City, and so I expressly told the man in Honolulu I was looking for a safe horse. I wanted a very excessively gentle horse, lame one if he had to. They showed me an animal that, well, he looked like he wanted to lean up against something. So I took him. The horse, he went along peaceably enough for a while, like he was absorbed in meditation. As I began to worry, no horse ever thought over a subject as thoroughly as this one was. And I got uneasy. And the more he thought, the more uneasy I got. Finally, I dismounted to see if there was, anything wild in his eye. Imagine my comfort to find out he was only asleep. About noon, That day I found a sandy beach. The bevy of young native girls bathing in the surf, naked. That was the sort of local color I was after for my paper. So I went down and I sat down on their clothes to keep them from blowing away. I cautioned them, I yelled at them, and it looked to me as if the sea was rising and they were in some danger. They just laughed and continued their frolic. After a few hours, I'd had enough, I suppose. So I went adieu to them, went back to my horse, and it was singular. The thing was asleep again. It just proves one thing. There is a difference between a horse and a man. You can't depend on the horse to gather news. Wrong word. The coming of civilization to those islands has brought about a great deal of change. Natives all wear clothes now for the protection of the tourist, as well as the missionaries. All that church going has built up in the native women a profound respect for chastity in other people. In fact, old customs have all but died out altogether. I visited one ancient temple where human sacrifices used to be offered up. See, in the old days, if a man yielded to sin, he could atone by offering up his grandmother. It was a good system. Man could go on enjoying life as long as his relations held out. But then the missionaries came there and they told the natives what a beautiful place heaven is. How hard it is to get in there. What an awful place hell is, and how easy it is to get in there. So then they got the natives to work all day long for 50 cents just to buy food for the next day. As compared with fishing and lolling around in the sun on those beautiful islands, oblivious to everything and not needing anything except what Mother Nature provided. Yeah. It's sad to think of the multitudes who went to their death on that beautiful island and never knew there was a hell. I interviewed the king of the Sandwich Islands while I was there, and he said, "We understand Christianity. We ain't the missionaries." Those missionaries taught these wonderful people all about the Bible. That was their mission. The Bible is full of interest. It has some noble poetry in it, and some clever fables, and some blood-drenched history, and good morals, and a wealth of obscenities, and upwards of 1,000 lies. Most people are bothered by the passages of Scripture that they don't understand. I'm bothered by the passages I do understand. You know, when I got back to San Francisco, I found myself out of a job. They said, goodbye. Well, I hired a hall, gave a lecture. I've never had to do a day's work since. I want to tell you, I've traveled all over the world, and I'm often asked why I wear this white suit. Well, it's been my observation in watching congressmen and savages, common ordinary people, and royalty, that clothes make the man. Naked people have very little influence on anything. Besides, I know when I'm dirty. I'm looking at all the wonderful colors you have on, and I'm wondering, as you may wonder later, I'm going to declare a little 10-minute or 15-minute intermission at this time for natural reasons. It's a terrible death, to be talked to death. And every now and then I do allow some people to escape. This is your first opportunity. Thank you. See, as many of you could not find the proper exit. Thank you for your indulgence. My home nowadays is in Hartford, Connecticut. That's a city that is famous as an insurance center. It's spread throughout the world. As a matter of fact, if you're going to say something, come down. Matter of fact, in Hartford, Connecticut, they have made me recently a director of an insurance company. One of your hosts is in the same criminal activity. I have developed a new respect and presence of mind in accidents, however, as a result of being a director of an insurance company. I look upon accidents as advertisements. Not long ago, I was passing by a building and it was on fire. Up about the 4th-story window, I saw a client of ours yelling for help out the window. Nobody did anything. They just stood there and looked at it. Nobody had any presence of mind. Nobody but me. I asked for a rope. And when one was brought to me, I threw an end of it up to him told him to tie it around himself. When he did, I pulled him down. There's nothing so beneficial as accident insurance. I've seen entire families lifted out of poverty by the simple boon of a broken leg. By way of advertisement, I might as well say right now that the noble charity to which I've become attached as a director is to be depended upon. No man can take out a policy with us and not get crippled before the year is out. And we've had some unusual cases come into that charity. One poor man got himself killed on the 4th of July. He was standing there watching the fireworks. He opened his mouth to hurrah, and a rocket went down his mouth. Before he could get a drink of water to quench the thing, it blew him up. Scattered him all over. I know this for a fact. It was raining his buttons all over the Atlantic shore. 2 weeks later. That's 1,500 miles. I had an uncle who was blown up that way on a different 4th of July. It trimmed him as if he were a tree. Didn't leave a limb on him anywhere. Only had the expurgated version of that uncle. We have testimonials too. The poor man had a really bad toothache. He went to a dentist, a Dr. Tushmaker. Tushmaker said, "Sit down, I'll pull it out." The man sat down in the dentist's chair. Tushmaker pulled on the tooth, the man's right leg went up like that. Tushmaker said, "What did you do that for?" "I couldn't help it." "Well, here's some laudanum. You come back in a week and I'll get that tooth out." Man said, "All right." During that week, Dr. Tushmaker made a contraption using the combined properties of the wedge, the crowbar, a lever, and whatever else he could think of. Man came back and sat down. Tushmaker said, "Now I'm going to get that tooth out." He hooked it up to the man's tooth. One yank. That tooth come out. It was hooked, the root of it, right below his right big toe. Took his skeleton right out of it. Tushmaker sent the man home in a pillowcase. Now that's the truth. I cannot lie. Well, I can, but I won't. I differ from George Washington. He said, "I cannot tell a lie." I can, but I won't. I won't mainly because the fine old art of lying has fallen into terrible straits. Anybody can lie these days. Look at who you're married to. But never fear, the lie is eternal. It shall not disappear from the earth as long as Congress is in session. You realize, of course, don't you, that America has no natural, native criminal class, except for Congress. For example, let us suppose for a moment that you were an idiot. And suppose you were a congressman. I repeat myself, that's one of the results of a long and notorious career is that you receive many requests for advice. I'm often asked to speak before groups of young people and advise them as to the proper approach to life. Well, I'm always delighted to do that, but I have some things on my mind, you see, and that I wanted to provide for the instruction of the young. So just a few simple rules. Young people, always obey your parents when they are present. Be respectful of your superiors, if you have any. Also be respectful of strangers and sometimes to other people. If a person offends you, do not resort to extreme measures. Watch for your chance and hit him with a brick. Leave dynamite to the low and unrefined. Go to bed early, get up early. That's very wise, very, very important. Some say you should get up with the sun. Some say one thing, some say another. Do you know what is really best? The lark. Tell people you get up with the lark. If you find the right kind of lark and train him just right, he'll get up at 9:30 every morning. Give you a splendid reputation. It has been said that we should endeavor to live so that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry. Now, to my mind, there are only 3 elements to good life. 3 elements. Good friends, good books, and a sleepy conscience. There is an old maxim that advises us that and assures us that man is the noblest work of God. Who thought that up? See, it's man's idea that the Almighty sits up nights to admire him. In his complacency, man thinks that nature regards him as the most important member of the family. In fact, he's a favorite, he thinks. It must occur to him, even to his dull head, that nature has a curious way of showing it. Now, if you're God's favorite, I've heard it said that the world was created for man. Well, all these millions of years of preparation have been just for him. I don't think we ought to decide that too soon. Not until all the returns are in. Of course, he must have been a fine boy. That first prehistoric man. Just think a moment about the style of him. Walking on his hind legs, arms swinging, practicing for the pulpit. when you come down to it, man only has one real superiority. That's his intellect, his imagination. Makes him different from all the others. The other animals didn't have it. Monkey hasn't got it. Or he wouldn't be so cheerful. I've heard talk about man being adapted to the earth. Well, I don't know exactly how people arrive at that idea. If man's adapted to the earth, you consider these things. Man cannot sleep out of doors without freezing to death. Can't keep his nose underwater for more than a couple of minutes, else he's drowned. Can't even climb a tree without falling out and breaking his fool neck. You got to be coddled and bandaged and housed and upholstered just to be able to live at all. He's always undergoing repairs. He's the only animal that blushes or needs to. While a machine as unreliable as a man would have no market at all. Nobody would buy it. Well, that's the human race. There's no way to libel it. But it does seem at times a pity that Noah and his party did not miss the boat. I read in the newspaper all the time, every day, knowing full well that I'll find the usual depravities and basenesses and hypocrisies and cruelties that make up civilization. And they cause me to plead for the rest of the day for the damnation of the human race. Can't seem to get my prayers answered at all. But I don't despair. I suppose we all must remember one thing. Man was made at the end of a week's work. I see that many of you have come to these services in pairs. Ladies and gentlemen must have some mutual attraction for each other. Are you giving each other the benefit of the doubt? On my pilgrimage to the Holy Land, I made the acquaintance of a young man named Charlie Langdon. He showed me an ivory miniature of his sister one day. I promptly fell in love with her. I saw her in the flesh the first time the following December. She was slender and beautiful and girlish, both girl and woman. 2 years later, we were married. It sounds easy and swift and unobstructed, but that wasn't the case at all. There was a great deal of courtship, 3 or 4 proposals, just as many refusals. Once I dug an invitation out of Charlie to come and stay a week. Now that was a pleasant week, but it had to end. Then, just at the last minute, good fortune stepped in. We were all up in the buggy, and somehow the seat was loose. And when Raymond touched the horses up, Charlie and I comes over backwards out of that buggy. I landed right on the top of my head. Stood that way for a minute, and then crumbled to the ground. Everybody came running out. They were trying to wake me up. No matter what they did, that couldn't affect that unconsciousness. I was taking care of that myself. There was nothing wrong with me at all. The family swarmed around and they poured enough brandy down me to strangle me. But the brandy did not even diminish that unconsciousness. I just kept taking care of it. They carried me into the house. Libby massaged my head. That was delightful. I got 3 days extension out of that adventure, and it helped a great deal. We became engaged, conditionally, of course. I needed references. So I wrote to all my friends, I thought, out west. They spoke in disapproval of me. Not only that, they were downright enthusiastic about it. One of the clergymen prophesied I'd fill a drunkard's grave. That was one of those long-range prophecies. There's no time limit on it. Finally, Mr. Langdon called me into his study and said, "Son, are these all the references you have?" I said, "Yes, sir." He looked at me a while, then he said, "Since you apparently have no friends, I'll be your friend. Take my daughter." Well, the engagement ring was plain and of heavy gold, engraved with the date February 4th, 1869. A year later, I took it from Libby's finger, prepared it to do service as a wedding ring, having the wedding date engraved inside, February 2nd, 1870. Was never to leave her finger again, even for a moment. In Italy, when death had vanished, had restored her vanished youth to her face, and she lay sweet and beautiful and looking as when she did when she was a girl and a bride. They were going to take that ring from her finger, keep for the children. I prevented that sacrilege, buried with it. All through the first 10 years of my married life, I kept a constant and discreet watch on my tongue while I was in the house. I went outside to a distance when circumstances were just too much for me and I was obliged to speak, well, to get relief by profanity. I prized my wife's respect and approval above all else, all of the human race's respect and approval. But I will say that the idea that no gentleman swears, well, that's all wrong. A gentleman can swear and still be a gentleman if he does it in a nice and benevolent and affectionate way. Just remember, when you're angry, count 4. When very angry, swear. Most of us don't bother to count to 4. I don't. I even perfected for myself, at least, absolute swearing phrase. Would you care to hear it? I can regard something as a quadrilateral, astronomical, incandescent son of a bitch. I once told the Reverend Twitchell that my swearing it didn't mean any more to him than his sermon did to him. Besides, if I can't swear in heaven, I ain't gonna stay there. That was many years ago. Now I'm 70. 70. I'm old. I recognize it, but I don't realize it. I wonder if a person ever ceases to feel young. If you do, you should just leave. Life would be infinitely happier, would it not, if we could begin at age 80 and go back to 18. We don't want to do high school again. When you get to be 70, actually I'm older than that. 70 is enough. And after that, there's too much risk. When you get to be that age, you're supposed to sit up there on that 7-terrace summit and tell the rest of the world how you got there. They all do it, you know, all those garrulous old people. They explain the process and dwell on the particulars with some kind of senile rapture. Well, I've been anxious to explain my system for some time, and I think I'll do it now. I think I have the right. I think I've achieved my 70 years in the usual way. I stick strictly to a scheme of life that would kill anybody else. I have just a few simple rules that I follow. Never smoke more than one cigar at a time. Never smoke cigars with life belts around them either. They always were too expensive for me anyway. I always smoked cheaply. Well, reasonably cheap. I used to, 60 years ago, they cost me $4 a barrel. My taste has improved lately, so I pay $7 now, or $8. No, I think it's $7, but that includes the barrel. I've never taken any exercise except sleeping and resting. I could never see any benefit in being tired. As for diet, I've tried to be very strict about sticking to things that don't agree with me until one or the other gets the best of it. Till recently, I always got the best of it myself. But last spring, I did stop frolicking with mince pie after midnight. Until then, I had always believed it was not loaded. I once tried to play golf. Long ago, when men cursed and beat the ground with a club. They called it witchcraft. Today they call it golf. To me, golf is just a good walk rowing. The point I want to make about about it is that you cannot reach old age by another man's road. My habits protect my life, they'd probably kill you. You have to make your own rules and stick by them. It's not that easy, it's not as easy as it sounds either. Because there's always going to be somebody trying to reform you, trying to take all the pleasure right out of your life, replace it with dreariness. Don't let them. If you can't make 70 by a comfortable road, don't go. I suppose it is a good idea to obey all the rules while you're young, just so you'll have enough strength left to break them when you get old. Being young is beautiful. Being old is comfortable. One thing you can't forget is that experience is the best way to find out about something. A fella who takes a bull by the tail, well, now he's getting 70 or 80 times more information than the fellow that doesn't. Consider this. Anybody who commences to carry a cat home by the tail, he's getting knowledge that is never likely to grow dim. It's never likely to grow doubtful. Chances are he won't carry the cat that way again. But if he wants to, I say let him. It ain't always easy to be eccentric. Just remember one thing. Wrinkles merely indicate where smiles have been. And you'll be all right. As I said earlier, I'm old. I remember once saying to our pastor, Joe Twitchell, I hope to be cremated. He just looked at me and said, well, if I had your chances, I wouldn't worry about that. I would like to see my old ancestor, Satan. I have no special regard for Satan, but I can at least claim that I have no prejudice against him. It may even be that I lean a little his way on account of his not having a fair show. All religions issue Bibles about him and against him and say the most injurious things about him. We never hear his side. We have only the evidence for the prosecution, and we rendered the verdict. Now, to my mind, that is irregular. That's un-English. It's un-American. It's French. Satan does have some case, however. I mean, let's face it, folks. A person who has for untold centuries maintained the imposing position of spiritual head of 4/5 of the human race and political head of the whole of it must have executive abilities of the loftiest order. I would like to see Satan, though. I probably will. Oh, maybe it won't be so bad down there. When I think of the number of disagreeable people I know who've gone to a better world, I'm sure it won't be so bad down there at all. Usually, I'm silent on the subject of the afterlife because of necessity. I have friends in both places. But I always remember the diligent fella who tried and tried all of his life to get into heaven. When he finally got there, the one person he met was a fella he had been hoping all his time was in hell. Well, that poor man was so disappointed. He was outraged. He inquired the way to hell, picked up his satchel, and went on down. So there you have it. Heaven for climate, hell for society. And it occurs to me that the people who are laughing at that know what their chances are. And some people only figured their chances just now. Usually, I'd stay a little longer, but it's about time to go. I came in 1835 with Halley's Comet. Coming again pretty soon, I expect to go out with it. It'll be the greatest disappointment in my life if I don't go out with Halley's Comet. No doubt, the Almighty has said, here are these two indefinable freaks. They came in together. Let them go out together. But I'm looking forward to that. My feet are tired. And you're tired. So I'll take my leave of you with a little story. A little girl in Tennessee. His family was moving to Texas. Came moving day. She went out in the backyard. It didn't please her at all. She went out in the backyard. Goodbye, green grass. We're moving to Texas. Goodbye, green trees. We're moving to Texas. Goodbye, God. We're moving to Texas. You know, that little girl didn't say goodbye, God, Texas. She said, goodbye, God. We're moving to Texas.